Awesome. Welcome back. Today we're going to be diving in. It's Cristy and myself here today. We've recorded a couple solo episodes, a couple guest episodes, but today we're going to be talking about the tools that you're using in your business. And so as a business owner, you might be jumping between multiple tools throughout the day, or you're constantly online, or you see all these advertisements about all these tools that'll solve all of your problems. And you realize that there's just a lot to consider. And we really want to dive in more to it's not always about the tools, but the systems that you need within your business, and then using those tools to support those systems. And so I'm excited to jump in today because a lot of times we're talking to business owners and we are helping them solve their tool problem, but they're looking at it from a tool perspective, not a systems perspective.
Yeah, when we look at that, the problem is often the software, right? It's they have a system and a software problem because they're disconnected, and people are switching between these tools thinking that they're magically just going to solve a problem, but in reality, they need to be properly implemented. They need to be taught. They need to have the system behind it, and it's exhausting. We talk about this a lot here at the Optimization Specialists. Of context switching is a lot, and when we're looking at small businesses, I thought it was interesting. We were talking about how on average, Forbes says that small businesses use 73 different applications. And it's super interesting how people are just switching between, oh, I think this one's going to solve my problem, or I think that one's going to solve my problem. And they're just replacing. So 1 in 4 CRMs, customer relationship management tools, were replaced in 2022. And a Harvard Business Review said that over 30 days are spent switching between different applications per person per company. And so if you really break that down, the problem is your systems are broken and there's a problem. And so we're going to talk about that today. I'm really excited. And so yeah,
Yeah,
hop right
let's
in.
jump in.
Sorry.
I think it's fun too because a lot we've talked before how about we've done a podcast or done different posts of you don't have a people problem, you have a systems problem, and now we're talking about you don't have a software problem, you have a systems problem. So systems are always kind of like the root of a lot of this, and I think there are a lot of those businesses that are spending a lot of money, both just to purchase the software. Sometimes they are paying a little bit extra for software because it has the bells and whistles. But back to that 30 days transferring. So that's 30 days to get you over there. And then that probably doesn't include the time it takes to train your team to do change. And as we all know, change is not typically very fun. And so there's a lot of learning curves there. And I've been in different corporate worlds where I do get excited about the new tools because I see how those will help solve our problem from a systematic perspective. But then you have people that have used the same technology and they're just not willing, they don't want to learn the new technology, right? So again, they look at this as, oh, I have to learn how to use a new tool, which is definitely true, but they're also getting a better system along the way. Hopefully, if the business is making the right decisions. So I think this will be good. The 73 apps, that's a lot. That's probably for a little bit larger small businesses, 50 to 100 employees, different departments. But I think the bigger stat there is on average, we're juggling between 9 and 10 apps a day. And right before we hit record, we're like, is that true? And we're going through all the different apps that we use in a day to send emails, track expenses, Loom to record videos, Riverside that we're using to record this podcast. And like, yeah, every day I'm in and out of all these different apps, and hopefully they work cohesively together. I mean, not every app needs to talk to each other, or am I jumping in and out to accomplish one task and they're not really creating a great process? It's just, I need to go here for this item and there for that item. It just creates a lot of back and forth and a lot of that context switching, which makes you lose time. So let's look at the app overload epidemic. And we kind of already started diving in there, but just thinking of all of the different apps out there.
Yeah, you really touched on it. I know I was a skeptical one. I was like, are you sure this is accurate? Like Forbes is saying we're using on average 73 apps or 10 a day. And I'm like, is that true? And we dive in and yeah, sure enough. And when we look at that, project management and CRM tools are often the most replaced. And the question to me is like, well, why? And I think it's because those companies will think Trello, Asana, Monday.com, ClickUp, there's so many other ones out there that their marketing is great and they're out there to solve a problem. And that's why businesses are in business, right? We're here to solve problems. And When we look at these project management tools on the in the world, they're there to solve a problem, and then they market to us, and then we're like, yes, that's what I need. But in reality, like you touched on, it takes time to learn these new tools. Somebody's got to implement the new tool, and there's really this issue of adoption, and time is money. And when we look at the value of our time, we think that these tools are here to be helpful. But if we're switching every 6, 12, 18 months, that's another 6 or 12 months of a learning curve. That's another 6 months of trying to actually implement this new tool and get adoption from your team. And so it's just this idea of we're always trying to find that magical fix. But in reality, that's not how a business works. So we do need to look at those systems.
Yeah, and I think with the apps, in a lot of cases, especially a lot of the clients that we work with, they purchase something because of the great marketing, to your point, and they're using 10% of the capacity of it because the marketing did a great job of talking about that one feature of automate your email generation or automate this, which we're very big on the automation side and cool, but you're paying $100 a month just to get automated emails, but you're not getting all of the other bells and whistles because one, that might not be what you need in your system, or you have the other app that is covering that. So you take two apps, put them together, you're paying for two separate apps, and 80% of your workflow is in one app and 10% is in the other. And you don't really do the migration piece because, again, you purchased the app for like that one feature, and maybe it was worth it to you to pay the extra money a month. But at the end, you have this stack of it reminds me of my kids with the toys of like partly used toys or partly used apps where it's like, why did I spend all of this money when I'm not using everything to the fullest? And software prices go up over time too, because as a business that creates software, they're trying to add value so that they can charge more. And like software is such an interesting world where there are server costs and things like that, but for the most part, as you add things, the building extra features costs money, but once you have it built, it doesn't really cost you a whole lot more. So it's great that once you get all those features out the door, you can increase your prices a little bit, increase your margins, and like that's a business model. And so as you bought it for that 10 or 20% usage, they're going to potentially keep increasing prices, add all these features that you're not willing to learn or not really part of your system. Like, cool, like you have this AI feature, but I'm not there yet, or I don't need that because my business doesn't need it type deal. And so that's where you end up with just all these apps, and then you cancel something and you lose the functionality, or you're looking for the next app that's going to solve it. It's kind of like that endless cycle. So I think there are plenty of apps out there, and this kind of leads into our system side. And I love this question of if we're buying all these tools, why do we feel so disorganized? And I think that is because you're not looking at it from a systems first. You're just trying to find the right tool to solve all of your problems. And so let's look into, as we said, the root of all of the conversations that we have with our clients, like the system first, software second.
Absolutely. And I think that goes to the idea of, we talk a lot about behind the scenes because we're trying to help our customers build a successful, optimized system. What is the goal of the goal? And ultimately, the tools are just not the strategy. What am I trying to say? Tools are not a strategy. Software is designed to execute a system and not define it. And so ultimately, when we're looking at this, the system has to be documented. The system has to be figured out in a way that is most optimized, and then figure out what software complements your system. When we use our project management systems with our customers, we look a lot at what is the best solution for them. We've migrated people off of Trello and off of Asana because they need something more robust. We'll put them into ClickUp because there is AI capabilities. We'll put them into Monday.com because of automation capabilities. We'll help bridge that gap, right? But most companies, most business owners are moving so quickly. They're working in their business and they're not actually designing their system. They're thinking, oh, this tool will solve my problem magically, but somebody has to build that. And there has to be a process. There has to be a workflow. It has to be mapped out. There has to be a real outcome. What is the goal of the goal? What is the goal of spending more money on this technology to build out an optimized system if we're not actually implementing what we need to be doing, and it's just creating more chaos or more disorganization or even frustration? If you really look at your team, they're like, why are we flipping around in all these different tools and they're not actually solving our problem, right?
Yeah, I think back when we solely did Monday.com implementations, our best customers were those that were inside of spreadsheets, right? Their entire business was run out of spreadsheets. And if they went and purchased the thing, a lot of them purchased Monday maybe before they met us and they try to migrate things over. But all they essentially did was take what they were doing in spreadsheets with just rows and status drop downs and putting that into Monday that just had better colors and maybe some notifications tied to it. And so now they're paying $25 a month a user for something that is essentially just spreadsheets 2.0, and they weren't really getting the value out of it. And so when we came in, we asked more of, hey, what does this process look like? Or where do you want to be from end to end? How does your team communicate with each other? What information do you want to know at the end of the day to understand, is the system working properly? And so very quickly we went from, oh, here's just a new place to drop, data cells, so to speak, and information. And like, let's create a workflow that goes across multiple boards with the right views. And so I think that's where you and I have the most fun, because like, as much as I am a technology implementer, I love more of how does the system change over time? And so how does the manager have visibility into everything that's going on within the business? And how do team members know exactly what they need to do from day to day? So now we have instant sorting and personal views for individuals, right? Because like, if you have a shared spreadsheet where everybody's poking around, it's not so easy to create views for different people or different departments. So that's kind of one of the starting pieces when we have migrated people to Monday. And I'm thinking of two fun analogies here that kind of take a step outside of business and technology and more into day-to-day life. And so one, I'm looking at a gym membership, right? This, I always think of New Year resolutions of, I've been sitting on the couch for the last 6 months. I'm going to go purchase that Planet Fitness membership for $15 a month, and I'm going to get back to the gym with no plan, just hopes and dreams, and really no way to execute. And I think essentially that Planet Fitness membership is the tool that people think is like, oh, if I purchase this, I'm going to get into shape. And one, as we all know, workout plans take a long time to take effect, which I think is very much true for systems, and you need to create that plan. The other one I always see is water bottles. This is always funny on social media of just like, oh, I need this brand new I need this sexy new water bottle, so I'll drink more water. It's like, well, what about the other 10 you have in your cupboard? Like, at the end of the day, I could have a plastic cup, and I could have a solo cup, and I can drink 64 ounces of water using a solo cup versus a water bottle. So again, it's getting the mentality behind it, the mindset behind it of like, I need to figure out what I want to do first, and then let me go find the delivery system or the technology system to help support that new plan.
Yeah, I like that. I think a way I'll kind of wrap that back into business is we need to create a framework, right? I'm a huge advocate of the gym. I love the idea of the tool. The gym is not going to just solve the problem. Like, you actually have to execute. So let's think about a little framework. So let's think about mapping out, what is our goal of the goal? What is the design of that? So we're going to map something out. We're going to create a workflow through designing that workflow. And then we're going to test it. So to your point, you mentioned a lot of people will come in with just a spreadsheet. They're like, hey, I'm tracking. I'm doing lead tracking, or I'm trying to document my systems. What tool is the best tool for that? If you're looking for a robust project management system, ClickUp's wonderful. If you're looking for something a lot more simple, maybe you go for Trello. Maybe you go for a spreadsheet, right? Like, there's these different ways of identifying what's the proper tool for you. If I look at that from a CRM perspective, a lot of companies, less than 1 in 4 companies even use a CRM. So when they are using them, they're using them in an ineffective way. So did you map out, what does the customer journey look like? Did you design that, right? Have you tested it? And then how can you automate that? And that's where we can come in, and we can look at, how do we take somebody from this idea, this big grandiose thing, and put it on paper? More specifically, put it in the technology, and then have the technology work for you. So the mini framework, if you will, is map, design, test, and then choose the tool. Don't use the tool and then reverse engineer that, because the tool is not the magic software that's going to solve your problem. It's actually executing the full design of that workflow. So you don't need a better tool, but you do need a better system for your team to follow.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. And I'm looking back to when we migrated the social media company off of Trello into ClickUp. And the Trello was kind of all over the place. And I'm going to step aside real quick and talk about product management. We in product management, we always talk about writing user stories, which is basically, as a user, I need to blank so that I can blank. And so one of the user stories from a social media is like, as a social media company, I need to have a place to store draft social media posts so that I can collaborate on them, which Trello did at least accomplish that piece. But as an owner of a social media company, I need to easily track the status across all clients so that I can, support where needed and understand what's going on. That was not one of the checkboxes from Trello, right? And then they also needed a way to bring in clients and send out notifications without having to send emails, right? And so that's where we start saying, okay, Trello is at least having a collaboration spot. Cool. It's a great collaboration tool. You can work from the top down. But when we want to reduce the communication, which we talk about a lot, like, let's find a way to automate that piece. Trello just wasn't cutting it there. And so that's why we moved into ClickUp. And there's a handful of other user stories that we kind of implemented there. But first of all, going into ClickUp, it was is difficult if you don't know what you're getting into. And so, I mean, shameless plug for us: hire somebody that is an expert in the tool that you're using. And I think, kind of just doubling down on that, switching tools should not just be a 5% side project of like, oh, when I have time, I'm going to slowly migrate us over into the system. Like, this needs to be similar to you moving houses across state, right? Like, you need to, using the house analogy, you've got to plan the moving dates. You've got to box everything up. You've got to figure out what moving truck you're going to use, which moving company you're going to use. You don't just decide one day that you're going to move across the country and, drive down to U-Haul, grab a truck and start filling it up. Like, it's a big process. And if you don't do that, now you're kind of stuck between two different systems and your team's confused, and they're not going to put the energy in to learn the new system because they still have one foot in the door of the other system. So you really need to say, if you're willing to do this, one, map out the system first, like we said, identify all of those user stories. What are the 5, 10, 15, 20 different things that you want to make sure are true while you're picking out a new tool? And then when you're ready to make the jump, like, you need to fully commit to that. And maybe that means bringing in outside people. Maybe that means pulling back a little bit on business generation, which sounds scary, but if not, you're going to be stuck in between two systems, and it's just going to slow you down, and you're wasting money, and it's just, you're going to probably end up losing business over in the long haul anyway, because you're so busy trying, you're not able to scale that way. So I think bringing all that together is critical when it comes to building the systems and committing to that new tool.
Yeah, I think one thing that was coming up as you were speaking was the idea that moving across the country is a physical thing. Like, it's not going to happen unless you are physically involved in it. When we look at technology, a lot of it's just behind this screen, right? It's hard to understand what are all those little steps along the way, and how do we really change this flow and have full team adoption if you can't really see it. And another thing that was coming through was, you mentioned potentially, you might need to slow down to speed up. So the analogy that came to mind is a bow and arrow, right? Like, if you really want this thing to propel, you have to pull it back. And what does that mean? You have to really figure out, what are the processes? Did they get documented? How do we break this cycle of really switching all over the place, right? How do we stop thinking that these tools are going to solve our problem? Well, if we pull back and we figure out what's working, what's not working, how do we make this better? And then we let it springboard forward. That's how we're going to find success. Don't continue to have these systems, these processes living in people's head. We need to document them. Don't allow teams to work in silos. We need to create a cohesion behind the scenes. We don't want to keep switching off of these platforms. As we mentioned, we're in 10 different platforms a day. Companies have over 70 tools normally. We're wasting time. Our team is exhausted. So we're trying to say, putting in these systems and figuring out how these tech tools will actually work for you is the best way forward, right? So we want to map this out. We want to choose the tools that are going to actually support the workflows and then roll out intentionally. I can't tell you how many times I've worked in a company and they're like, we're going to use this new tool. And then they throw it at the wall like they hope the spaghetti will stick. That's not how new technology works. You have to teach your team, give them the why, give them the goal of the goal, and help them understand why you're shaking it up, because it is a big learning curve. And so ultimately, I would encourage people to not rely on the technology as a magic pill or a magic solution, and really identify what is that process and what needs to happen for this to be fully functioning. And I think a lot of times it's hard when you're in it, right? And so that's why I, again, kind of shameless plug, but I enjoy coming into a company and saying, what technology tools are you using? Let's look at them. Let's see how your workflows are working. Does your team work in silos? Do we have a capability of creating more cohesion and automating things? What is those manual processes that you're doing over and over again? We have a gym owner that, was sending out text messages every weekend, and we're like, well, why don't you automate it? And he goes, what do you mean? I didn't know I could do that. And we said, yeah. And we built that for him, right? And so I think it's an idea of intentionally rolling out what's working in your company. Your systems are only going to be as good as you are, and bringing in an outside source can often help create more clarity, because the second you have to start explaining it is when you start to identify, is this working or not working? Think about, I forget who said it, maybe you can hop in here, but it says, the best way to know that you understand something is to teach it. If you can't teach it, then it's not as good as you think it is. Like the idea of keeping it super simple, right? How can you simplify this and really help somebody understand that?
Yeah, and I think too, to get buy-in, don't come here for a smaller team. It's pretty easy. The business owner is at least close enough to all the pieces that they have a good understanding of it. But when you start getting into teams, probably even just larger than 5, like reach out to the different team members, because you might be focused on a problem that you hate of, like, I have to keep reaching out to this person to get a status update. Like, okay, like, yeah, we can fix that. But what you don't realize is they're drowning because they're using all these tools that don't talk to each other. And the reason you're not getting status updates is they're so busy doing like busy work, because their tools aren't the proper way to do it, that they don't have the time to communicate with you on status pieces. So I want to go talk to that person to understand what their day to day looks like, so we can understand. Hopefully, we can solve it in 1 or 2 tools that we're recommending, but maybe there's something else out there that's like, hey, there's this other, I understand the system that you need in order to do your job better. Let's connect them to each other potentially, or purchase this other tool that will help you solve that quicker. So, business teams probably under 5, business owner can give a pretty good understanding. But once you get really many more than 5 team members, you need to talk to the whole team. One, you're going to get better buy-in because they got to collaborate, versus you coming in one day and said, hey, over the next 30 days we're migrating from application X to application Y. And 2, you're going to get some behind the scenes details that you might not realize day to day, because you only get to see the end result. And so we can identify, one, does this require an extra app? Or maybe the app we were looking at doesn't quite cut it, but the app right next to it also has a couple of extra bells and whistles or a couple of extra features, and that will accomplish not only what I need as a business owner, but also what some of my other team members need. And so I think that is critical, because again, if we go back to some of the tools that we've migrated from, for a team of 3 to 5, Asana might be great. But as you get into, teams of 10, 15, 20, you're looking at maybe enterprise level software. That's where a Monday or a ClickUp comes into play, because it's built more for that team multi-department collaboration. So don't do this in a vacuum. Talk to your team, get that buy-in before you go and sign the contract and to purchase this software, and make sure that you have all pieces of the puzzle, not just those user stories that you want to solve as a business owner.
Yeah, you mentioned busy, the word busy, and it's 2025 and people are busier than ever. And I think the biggest thing on that too is looking at, are you busy being productive or are you just busy spinning your wheels? And we're reading a book, Buy Back Your Time. And one of the analogies in there is a dog is super busy digging a hole, but is it really productive, right? And I'm like, yes, that's so real. And when you look at improper project management systems or CRM systems, I think about it that way too. Are you busy because you're constantly pinging your team and you're saying, give me a status update, and you're interrupting their workflow? You're not in really a flow. But could you create a system that can drive scalability and consistency by creating that dashboard view, or by creating those automations, or by creating the visibility of who's responsible for what is due, and when is that thing due, so that your team can work not in a silo, but more or less asynchronously and be more productive, versus I'm digging a hole right here because that's what my boss said to do. And in reality, you should have been 10 feet to the left, but the system didn't tell you that. And so now you have to, you're tired from digging hole A, and now you have to go dig hole B because you were not on the same page. So proper tool alignment reduces friction. It reduces, it's going to help reduce waste, right? When we look at having the proper tools in place. And it's also going to reduce a lot of confusion. A lot of people are very confused on what they're responsible for because it's not documented, or the manager doesn't have time to explain how to do all the things. Well, how can we document that? Our tools should help us amplify, and they shouldn't be a magic solution, but overall, we really want to help identify how can you be more productive, or for lack of a better phrase, more optimized in your systems and your business, so that you can save time, you can save money, and you can save energy.
Yeah, I love that, and so I'm looking here at time, and I kind of want to start coming here, start landing the plane a little bit, and I think at this point, I'm sure there's plenty of people nodding their heads of yes, like I've purchased all these different tools over the years, different things are going on here, but I kind of want to explicitly call out some of the red flags, or like the signs essentially that you need to kind of do a technology audit and review what your processes are. Again, don't just go purchase the new thing that is in your social media feed, the ads that are in front of your face. But let's look at a couple things here. If you're constantly switching CRMs, project management systems, or really like any of those tools out there, like there's a sign. No one on the team is using tools the same way. I've seen this multiple times of, we have the end goal of we need to create a presentation, or we need to present to customers what the status update is. Some people use PowerPoint. Some people are doing that in a spreadsheet. Some people are using Canva, right? So there you don't have a process around it. Basically, you just have the end result, and now people are using multiple tools. The bigger one here, processes live in people's heads, not on paper. Documentation, SOPs, we talk about this all the time. If you don't want to be so specific that the team is kind of like in a very small box, you do want to give a little bit of flexibility there. But if when somebody is onboarded and starts on your team and you just tell them like, hey, at the end of the day, I just need you to show me X, like, cool, we have the finish line, but we want to make sure that they're doing it efficiently, that we have consistency across the team, because if person A gives a presentation to a customer, and then another team member, B, gives a presentation to a customer, you want it to be consistent, and you want to make sure they get there the same way. And person A might have taken 2 hours and person B might take an hour. So maybe either person B is more efficient, or maybe the process that they're using is more efficient. So kind of use that highlight. And so if any of that is kind of true for you, I think that's kind of that's your sign here. Take a look at like, how do I make this better? Because again, time is being wasted, which means money is being wasted. And if you're looking to scale, systems are going to be the way that you do it. So we kind of already talked about this, but mapping out those core processes, identifying that all first, mapping out those user stories of like, as a team member on the marketing department, I need a way to do X so that I can Y, and then start looking at tools that do that. I think of in larger companies from previous corporate experience, we look at RFPs, right? Like we have a checklist of 25 things that we want a new piece of software to do, a new vendor that we're going to invest in. Maybe not all 25 are critical. We have them mapped out as like must-haves, nice-to-haves, and great to haves. But your must haves, every single one of those checkboxes has to be checked. If you look at a piece of software and one of those must haves isn't checked, like just you pretty much just have to throw it out the door. Unless your must haves are so unrealistic that there's no app that can cover, all of those. But for the most part, your must have should every single one of those should be checked. And the big thing is like rolling out intentionally. This is not a side project that you slowly move out to the team. To me, this is the same thing as getting ready for a marketing campaign, or you're adding a new product line or new service offering to your business. This isn't something that just happens overnight. Like, you've got to get that full buy-in.
Yeah, I agree. I love all of that. Thank you for recapping. And I think a big thing is you don't have a tech problem, right? As a company, as a business owner, you have a system clarity problem. And your tools should be able to help support you execute, but not define your strategy. And if you want your team to run like a machine, then build the blueprint first and then buy the parts. Let's map that out. Let's define what success looks like, and then figure out what tools will work for you. So shameless plug, I will say we do a tech audit if you're interested. And we can help look at what's working, what's not working, see if you have disjointed systems and disparate systems in your company. Ultimately, we want to help you be more efficient, save on time, money, energy. And with that, we would love to continue chatting.
Yeah, I'll add to that real quick too. Like, tech audit, we should probably look at renaming that, because it does look like we're just going to come in almost like a software vendor and be like, oh yeah, we can do that and more. But we really are looking at the underlying systems. We don't just say, hey, is technology A right for you? Because like I never look at a single piece of technology as you said. We look at your systems, because a social media marketing company looks a lot different than a home services company, which looks a lot different than a company that works on big projects, 6-month long projects. Completely different systems. So ClickUp might be the tool for person A, but not for person B. And so, yes, we would love to be there, because one, we love to kind of help. And sometimes the audit is just yeah, your tools are great, or here's some tool recommendations that you could look at because we've implemented for X, Y, and Z. And maybe you'll work with us and we'll help you do the implementation. Again, bring in that outside person that we can be the experts there, pull all the right levers to get ClickUp or Monday dialed in. Or at least that we'll tell you, oh yeah, the reason this isn't working is I understand your systems. Monday might be missing some of those features. You should move to ClickUp or whatever. Like, we'll give you that full recommendation at the end of it. And kind of just at least paint a picture of, yeah, here's your gaps and here's some tools that can help do that, as long as your systems are also in place. So don't look at, as we keep repeating, don't look at this as a technology answer. This is definitely a systems answer, but we understand which tools will fit within different systems. And so that's where the technology audit comes in. But with that, yeah, I think this was a great review of things. We do not want to see businesses wasting money on the next the next application that they think are going to solve all their problems, that they don't have time to implement, or it doesn't even fit well with their systems. It just has a couple of bells and whistles and great marketing that they think are going to solve all their problems.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Jon, thank you so much for your time. And I think it's important that people look at their systems. Coming up in the next episodes, we've got a couple solo episodes, we've got a couple guest episodes. So stay tuned. There's more to come. And that's what we got for the day.
Yeah, we'll see you on the next one.